So Randy's up next. He says, for clients that are service area businesses, what can be done to improve GMB rankings across different cities or even states and counties? Already have city pages for all the target areas and a shield setup plus branded GMB and citations for the main business. Is it necessary to get citations for all city pages too? Wondering what's the most effective way. Well, remember GMBs, depending on the industry, the proximity filter, where Google will only show GMBs that are within a specific proximity or a proximity range from the searcher at the time that they perform the query, the search query. It varies based on industry. So in other words, and also, I think what also influences the proximity range is the number of available businesses that meet that search criteria, if that makes sense. So for example, if you're in a rural area that has very few businesses that meet, for example, a tree service, somebody who's searching for tree service near me, and they're in a rural area that has, only a handful, half a dozen or so, and these are just numbers that I'm pulling out of my ass, but half a dozen or so tree contractors, then it's likely that tree contractors that are, 30, 40 miles away can show up still in local search for that particular search query, because that searcher, the Google user, was searching in a rural area where there wasn't a lot of options. But if they're in a metropolitan area where there's probably dozens and dozens, 100 plus tree service contractors, like I live in Culpeper, Virginia, which is kind of a rural area, but is like the highest per capita tree service contractors in probably the United States. No kidding. And you can't go down the street without passing 3 tree trucks. It's not a joke. So like if you're in Culpeper and you search for tree service near me, it's going to show you a bunch of contractors that are all located right in Culpeper. It's not, if an adjacent city, it's not going to show contractors from an adjacent city until you get to like page 3 or 4 in the maps results. And that's because it's showing all of the maps listings close to where that search is being performed, if that makes sense. So with GMBs, it varies depending on what the range is, the proximity is, and all that kind of stuff. But it's, you can influence that. You can overcome that, which is precisely what we teach in local GMB Pro, and also in the Mastermind and at the Heavy Hitter Club, where we get into nitty gritty stuff. And Marco calls that expanding the centroid. But it requires consistent effort. And again, depending on what the competition is like, how many other companies, it varies. It can make it more difficult to expand the centroid if some of those other variables are present, right? So without having additional GMBs, that's what I was really getting at, was trying to answer your question. If you have one GMB and you're trying to expand that very, very far, it's going to take a lot of consistent effort. And it's also, like I said, there's going to be other variables such as competition, the number of companies that meet that criteria, whether it's rural or urban, or what the population is, and all that kind of stuff. So that's all going to make it, more difficult to expand that GMB itself for it to rank in maps. So the way that I've always overcome that was, besides going the long route, which is to optimize and push the centroid, expand the proximity of the actual map listing, is to just try to secure other GMB assets. And there's, it's still possible to do it, guys. We don't sell that as a service, but it's still possible to do it. I know, because I've done a few of them in just the last month or two. So it is still possible, but that would be my suggestion, is how, if you want to expand your existing centroid or GMB maps proximity, then get local GMB Pro, or join the Heavy Hitter Club, and you can find out how to do that stuff there. Otherwise, try to secure other GMB assets. That would be my recommendation. Marco, can you take a stab at that?
Yeah, I mean, the start of all this, different cities and a GMB. Think about it. A GMB in Chicago appearing, for example, in Los Angeles.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, depending on the service, if it's something hyper local, if it's a dentist and you have an emergency, why in the fuck would you want to be in LA looking for a dentist in Chicago unless you're in the damn plane going for it and it's already boarded and everything is shut? Now you're going to Chicago. You want someone in Chicago. You're looking in LA, but you want that emergency dentist when you land in Chicago. other than that, and this is just a very unlikely and hypothetical situation, not likely to happen. What you're going to look for is you're going to jump on that cell phone, more likely than not, and look for someone that's literally 5 minutes away, and to take care of whatever emergency it is. The tree fell on your roof, and you need that fixed right away because it's raining. Your toilet just burst, and you got shit all over the bathroom. I always go to this one. Yeah, who do you want to come out? The guy that's an hour and a half away while your house gets shittier and shittier, or you want the guy that's 10 minutes away that's going to come right out and clean it up, couple hours and it's done. You don't want to wait a couple hours for the guy to come out. So think about this when you're looking to do this from one city into others. How are you going to service those people? Well, if you plan to have trucks in that area, or whoever it is in that area, crews, then it's better for you to get one of those people in that other city, to get a GMB in that other city, so you can start targeting that city from as close to city center as possible, unless the majority of the population is not close to city center. Then you have to start looking where the majority of your targeted population is and try to get that GMB as close to the center of that as possible. Because when Google starts going out, it's going to your business centroid and the centroid, whatever it calls the geographical center of that city, and creating those relationships and seeing where the people are and where the people are likelier to look and to click on. Google is taking all of this into account when it's displaying the people in the map pack for this service, whatever it is. You have to give Google a reason to put you in the 3-pack, number one, and you have to give people a reason to click on your result. Also, because even if you're in the map pack, if nobody's clicking, then it doesn't matter. You're dead anyway. It's a dead business. Now, the other part of that, citations and all of that. But yeah, if you're going to different cities and it's a different GMB, then yes, by all means. But what you have to do is relate all of these businesses to the main business. We've talked about it. You do this through schema. We constantly do this. You relate all of these businesses one to the other. The parent organization has children, the children have a parent, and then you create these excuse me, schema relationships. But I mean, yeah, you need citation. If you have a GMB, you're going to have the citation because you're going to have a different location. But it's all part, it's just like we do with Press Advantage. If you're in a different city, it's a different media page. You don't put everything on the same organization page in Press Advantage. We don't do that. You go with separate Press Advantage media centers or media pages. That's how you would do it. But yeah, you're thinking that with one GMB you'd be able to target, for example, maybe Chicago and then Milwaukee, which is relatively close by. And no, think of all the resistance that you're going to have to overcome for that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, for each city page, no, if you only have one GMB and you're trying to create all these city pages, you can do organic rankings, but you don't create citations are only for the GMB. Correct. Right? Does that make sense? Structured citations are only for the GMB. So if you have other GMB locations for the same brand, then yes, you would create citations or have citations created for those other locations. But here's the thing, though. I don't recommend, and I've said this for years, if you are using spammed GMB listings, so without valid locations that can be verified and re-verified if needed, you don't want to do citations then, because you can still rank GMBs without citations. Let me be very clear. If I have a client that has a valid business location, I absolutely build citations. No question about it. It's even in my GMB checklist that I just shared with you guys today. But if it's a lead gen asset or a spammed GMB listing, in other words, it's a non-valid or non-Google approved type of location for that GMB that GMB is associated with, then I do not build structured citations. I build unstructured citations, which means name, address, phone number mentions across blogs and press releases and things like that. But as soon as you start submitting and building structured citations on business directories, you're going to start getting calls, number one, solicitation calls from those directories trying to upsell you on advertising. And as well as you start getting direct mail at those locations that is addressed to that business. So if you don't have a valid location, then don't do it, because otherwise you'll start, it could potentially raise a flag to whoever's getting that mail if they're getting it. So I wouldn't recommend that. So again, get additional GMB assets for additional locations that you want to push into. That's still, in my opinion, the best way to do it. Good question, though.